All right, so the riders are down, as Marty would say, channeling my inner Marty, poised and ready. And they are off now, right in the middle of your screen. Laudon Sweck opening up this big one here. He is the rider to watch out for as they go down the center here. Easterbit on the left-hand side from the Palisos's team. There on the right-hand side of your screen, Felipe Orts just getting boxed out by Vincent Bostons as they come down here. It looks to be the Swiss rider, Kevin Kuhn, really punching it up, trying to get to this sand first as Pim Runhard tucks right in there in the back, just in the back of Lars van der Haar, who's also in good position. Hella, talk us through this first section that the riders are going to be hitting.
It's so important to get in the off-road section into the first 5. That's where you are going to struggle to be able to get around, because they're going to maintain that speed that they started at for every straight section until the first corners. And as you can see, they're coming back now towards the finish line. They hit the next to the lake, and again, you've just got to. It's all lined out at this point. And some riders will be able to come around just before the corners, but if you can keep that pace incredibly high, as Lawrence Sweek is right out the saddle now, sprinting, basically the first sprint is to these little sand sections that we're about to hit.
Yeah, now watch here if you're just joining us. I'm Jeremy Powers. I'm joined by a podium finisher actually at this race, but many times British champion, cyclocross, just, yeah, the best. Helen Wyman, we're both here today, but these riders going in, problems in this corner. We saw this in the women's race right here, a big bottleneck.
Yeah, huge bottleneck. Not everybody wants to stop and wait, so everybody's trying to force their way through. They jump off the bike, they push past. If you're not in the top 5, you need to be off the bike at that point. There's a lovely line there by Vinnie Vestans in 4th spot there in the blue and green kit. Took a different line that nobody's really looked at before at this point. We're going to watch again. Sweik actually caught his front wheel in one of those ruts and wasn't able to make that corner. So being he caused even more of an upset than you would normally get, because normally the speed would be slightly higher. But he's straight back. He didn't have any problems, and he did the smart thing by going to the front of this race. Yeah,
it's I was watching yesterday's race again and just watching the power that was in everybody. We've talked about it being a long season, but yeah, right now at the front here, we've seen this established. This is a really hard part of the course here. You've got to keep a lot of momentum. It's an uphill sand dune. It's not long, but you've got to have good momentum. You can't just outpower that section. You have to have power and momentum. The course today has almost no moisture in it, which is not great when you're doing a sand race, because the ruts don't stay. The sand's going all over the place, and the riders don't have the big deep rut to be able to bury themselves into and carry them across.
No, you really want deep ruts, and you want hard ruts in sand, because that actually gives you much more traction. But as the loose ruts, you can fall out of them quite quickly. And these guys are riding super fast, so they are pushing the boundaries of those ruts. Oh, overtaking manoeuvre there didn't quite work out. They're showing us a lot of footage of Ellie Isabet, who's not in this front group at this point. He was much further back, which is surprising, because he's actually very good in sand races. Again, he had a great result yesterday. No spoilers on that one. And he's more tired, but he's winning this race, and he only has a 2-minute and 30 this series. Sorry, he only has a 2-minute and 35 lead over Van der Haar, who's currently sitting in 2nd spot.
That's right. So Kevin Kuhn there. Vincent Bostons having a really great start here in LILLE. Oh, and a little bit of a slide out there for Sweck as he goes through. Van der Haar, we know yesterday, really strong yesterday. Easterbit not in the mix right now, Helen. What does that tell us?
It tells me that he didn't have a great start, but it doesn't necessarily tell me that he's not feeling strong. Isabet is easier to apply pressure to mentally than some of the other riders. Van der Haar, he takes everything mentally incredibly well and never really gives up on anything. But equally, if Michael Van Toornout's just ahead of Ellie Isabet, they work very well as a team, and for Van Toornout, he's not going to lose anything in this race, really, so in the overall series, so maybe they could work together to bring him back at some point. But Van der Haar is completely taking this race on, and he's got nothing to lose. He is second. There's nobody that can catch him behind, really, and so yeah, he wants to take this race on and try and separate Isabet and take back time so that he could win the series overall. And yesterday, are we allowed to say what he did yesterday?
Go for it. I'm fine with it.
Okay, so he finally won the Super S Prestige Series, and yeah, so he's already won one of these series, and right now he's putting himself in fantastic contention to win another.
Oh my gosh, I know. I'm so happy for him. But yeah, we won't give away the exact result yesterday, but he rode a great race. He's on super form right now. This is the third place rider in the series overall, Michael Van Torenhout, whose form not where he probably wants it to be, but like we were talking about, super long season. But oh man, Van der Haar out of the saddle, knows this moment right now. He's got Iservit on the ropes. They did a head-to-head duel yesterday, Iservit and Van der Haar, and right now Van der Haar's waiting for his moment here to pounce. He's got Lawrence Sweck coming across, just staying right on his wheel. Wake also in the mix yesterday. Watch this section. This is a little bit of a 2x4 that these riders have to jump up onto. Kevin Kuhn a little sideways there with a foot out. Boston's very, very good. Iservit realizing the problem, has to put a foot out. A little bit of damage control. He's just kind of a little squirrely all over the bike. And there's Pim Runhar, the rider that's trying to take time away from Michael Van Torenhout to land himself a spot on this overall podium here at the X²O Badkamers Trophy. With only one round to go next week in Brussels, this is a great opportunity for the young Balawasa Trek rider.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really interesting because Elizabeth tends to be a better sand rider than a lot of the riders that he's around right now. And so obviously he made a good move in the woods, came around the group and took back as much time as he can on that using his sand skills. And he's a much smaller rider, which makes it slightly easier. If you're slightly lighter, you don't compress into the sand as much, which makes it easier to ride over. But yeah, he's doing great right now, and he obviously knows how important this is for him right now.
Yeah, right now we're seeing just a lot happening. I mean, Van der Haar has this opportunity, and he's not going to mess around. He's on a track that he likes. He's done well on before. He's got an opportunity here to take some time away, but he really is just putting the pressure. He's going to look back. He's going to see Iservit's kind of boxed out here without a great start. He's going to see his teammate also back there, knowing that he maybe could get a little bit of work. Lawrence is not able to immediately match what Van der Haar is doing, especially in that tricky section. Lots of small, low center of gravity areas where Van der Haar is really excelling.
Yeah. Yeah, Lawrence Sweek is a taller rider than Van der Haar and Isabel, and so for him it is definitely about centre of gravity, and these corners are tricky. They're really tight. You need to carry as much speed as possible, and yeah, Van der Haar's doing a brilliant job. But again, Sweek is good in sand. You know, he's had some great results in Coxsider and places like that, and even this year in Zonhoven he was on the podium in the World Cup, which is a sand race, as we know. So yeah, we can see, we'll have to see how the race progresses. But with this start straight, I'd imagine that the group would come back together behind, which if Lars van der Haar can keep a small gap, that will be an advantage for him, because then they'd start to look at each other.
Van der Haar followed by Sweck coming across now. Let's just get a bit of a lap time on this. So it looks to be 7:54 as he comes across. So I've started my own lap timer here, so we'll see what they do on this next lap. Kevin Kuhn coming across with a big group there. And this is a good opportunity, again, for Joris Neuvenhuis to slow down this chase. We've got Runhar, Felipe Orts, Ryan Camp all coming across. Lander Locks, Jens Adams leading this group. Tone Orts coming across. So we've got quite a bit of power in this chase group. Already 20 seconds down, though, as they come through now, with Van der Haar on the front, really tearing this one up.
Michael Van Torenhout had a sickness before Hammer, which is the week before Worlds, and sometimes when you've actually been sick, you become much fresher. So he got a good result at the World Championships. He was in a great place, but he didn't he was in third for a long time, but he didn't finish there. But I think when you've had a sickness, you've got fresh, you've had a great result, and then after that, that's when you start to suffer a bit, because you're training, you miss some weeks of training, or you just...
Sorry about that. That is just crazy. Iservit realizing what happened yesterday between the teammates of Lars van der Haar, and man, he just said, you know what, I'm not taking this for... He shoots up and just goes right underneath there. That was good. I like that. Hope we get a replay of that. That was good. But Iservit realizing the mistakes from yesterday and not playing games with Joris Neuvenhuis today.
Yeah, definitely. That's a brilliant move by Isabel there, and that's a line for taking. You know, if you can run it quicker, run it. I say this a lot. Your cyclocross, your running speed is your minimum speed.
Yep, I agree. I was thinking he would have to be crazy to let this script play out again where Joris Neuvenhuis gets into the sand before he does, because it made Easterbit's race yesterday against Van der Haar so much harder, Helen. He had to do so much work to come back after Joris Neuvenhuis kind of, messed up one of the sand sections. He was not going to let that happen again today, taking a note from yesterday, because he's already on the back foot. He's had a rough start. Van der Haar's on a good day, and he doesn't want to have to make up on a track this fast, trying to 5 seconds a lap. It's not as easy. There's only a couple sections where you can really take time back and lay the power down.
There are very few sections where you can actually get the power going, and so yeah, he's got to use his skills, and his skills, he's good in sand, so why not? But not being good in sand doesn't just mean that you can ride a rut really well. It also means that you know what to do in certain situations, and so you know in that corner that ride is slower, so your running speed's faster. Get off, run past, and then you have the racing line. And it's all about having the racing line on anything where there is only one line.
Right now, we've got here at the front, really aggressive start from Van der Haar. He's not playing games. He wants to take a victory, puts his hands in the air. He said it yesterday on his Instagram. He was happy to win the overall series at the Super Prestige, but he wasn't happy to not be able to take the victory in yesterday's race. He is on a tear right now, and he wants to make up for what happened yesterday. Laurens Sowake on his wheel, though, and now Kevin Kuhn, the Swiss rider, didn't have a great race yesterday, but is definitely on good form today.
Yeah, Kevin Kuhn, we know, has a fantastic start. We've seen a lot of him this year, normally in his Swiss National Championship jersey, but obviously he didn't win that this year, and so we know he's fast at the start. Swiss riders aren't necessarily naturally as good in sand as Belgians that are from this region, which most Belgians that race across are from this region. So they're born growing up and start as racers in these kind of conditions, and that's why you see they're so much better. And Isabit is better technically in the sand, and now he's just applying all his form that he has. And he was third in the World Championships. He's got as good a form as anyone in this bike race. On paper, he has the best results recently over anyone in this bike race. So he really does not want to lose any time on Van der Haar right now.
No, I'd say he's the favorite. He has to be the favorite for the win. I mean, based on what he's done recently, I think yesterday he was also the strongest, but technically not the best, but he looks to be making up for that right now. He was very clean. He's very in control of what he's got going on. There's Van Haar, who has got some time over Michael Van Toornout. Van Toornout realizes, this is, of course, it's for Michael Van Toornout, this doesn't make or break his year. He's had an incredible year winning that World Cup in Val di Sole. He's won the European Champs jersey. He's taken World Cup. I mean, he's had a great year, but it's really from a payday standpoint, Helen, oh no, problems there for Corné van Kessel, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wonder if he crashed on that corner. It might start to be getting a bit shiny where the riders are riding all the time if the ground's really hard, and maybe he went in too hot into there, or maybe Isabit's down.
Isabit down, Helen. Just like a slow-mo crash from Isabit. Maybe he couldn't get out of his pedals. Sometimes that happens there. That's just the first thing that comes to my mind is why did that happen? But Isabit made this huge attack to come back to Van der Haar. He did that crazy sniper move underneath the teammate. Now let's watch here. He comes in here and he's just got his foot down. What are we seeing?
Yeah, he can't get his left foot out at that point. It's stuck in the pedal, and so whereas normally a lot of the guys just use a foot to clip out, but he's trying, and instead he just crashes because the foot doesn't get out and it's stuck in there. Even when he's trying to get off the bike, the foot's still stuck on that left pedal. So you get that in sand when the sand and a little bit of mud come together, even if it's just dirt rather than actual wet mud. Which they're getting off in a couple of sections, and he got off on those sand corners, so he could have got sand impacted in his pedal, and then it's tricky to get your feet in or out sometimes.
Now he's on the back foot. This is what we saw yesterday, and he's off the bike again there on the left-hand side of your screen. You saw him kind of bobbling, and the thing's going super slow. He's stuck behind Joris Neuvenhuis and Pin Ramahar of the Balawasa Trek team. So Van der Haar, this is a gift right now for him. When you think about Easterbit and the duel that they would have, this is going to be a big problem for Easterbit to put down enough power in the sections of this course where he can to bring this time back on a very motivated Lars Van der Haar.
Yeah, and you can see Lars can see that he's no longer close. He doesn't necessarily see where he is, but he will see exactly where he is from that shot. But he knows that he's not on his wheel, and so if he has another solid lap, it's going to be really tough for Isabit to come back. But like we say, Isabet's good in sand and he has good form, so Sweek isn't going to help him, which is something he might try and get Sweek to help him, but I really don't think he's going to be able to, because Sweek is there for a free rider to try and win this race. It's still really tight, and despite me saying that Sweek's going to go on for a free ride, he's actually gone to the front and decided to take this on as well. Probably because he's thinking, well, it's an opportunity to win. Van der Haar's after the overall. I could try and take this as a win. And like I said, we do know that he's good in sand because he did get great results in a couple of sand races this season.
Let's see, because yesterday Sweek was just off the pace with Van der Haar a little bit yesterday as they came through. And now Kevin Kuhn, and of course we're going to see Easterbit do the dive bomb. He's not going to want to be hung up in this sand again, so this is going to be a big race. But Runhaar is going to absolutely fight to take this one up and do everything that he can to put time into Michael Van Torenhout, but also to protect the front of this race for his teammate Lars Van der Haar. As now Sweek comes across the front, and he's just continuing to keep the pace high, but Van der Haar will see what's going on behind on these 180 sections, and he's also, Helen, isn't he, going to be getting a bit of info as he goes through the pits and from his team personnel all along the track?
He will, absolutely, and he will definitely be able to see that his two teammates are at the front of the next group. And even if one comes across to him, that's actually quite useful to him. And I mean, in cyclocross, we don't work as a team, but you can see them going through these ruts here, and you can see their bikes just flicking from side to side, and you literally just have to keep the power down and hope for the best, because that's the technique of riding sand. You look forward, you power through the saddle so that it's almost like you're riding a motorboat, and the front wheel doesn't have as much pressure, and then you just ride. And when your bike goes one way or other, you just let it go there and hope that it takes you in the right direction eventually. And they're going so fast. Unless you've actually ridden sand, you wouldn't be able to appreciate what their skills are right now.
The Trek boys are having a day of it, aren't they? They're opening up gaps and letting things roll with their power and numbers out here. We haven't seen this really play out, but man, Joris Neuvenhuis has been able to be a great teammate yesterday to Van der Haar, and now today to the former under-23 world champ, Pim Runhaar, who came across the line when he won that title, flapping his wings like a big falcon, if I recall. So lots of panache and style from Pim Runhaar. I'm stoked to see him, such a young rider, Helen, already kind of staring down a podium, overall podium of a big series like this. It's a sign of things to come, isn't it?
It's really, really impressive to see. And yeah, using your teammates, like I say, we don't tend to work as a team in cyclocross. It's hard to do that, but when you have the opportunity to do, we saw at the beginning of the season, Van Torenhout and Isabet really mess up many of Sweek's races for him by working as a team. And so why would you not want to do that back to them at the first opportunity that you have?
Whew, man, Runhaar going all out here, just leaning the bike over. He's riding a little bit like a little wild as he goes through. You can see him; he's just kind of wheeling out and going sideways. It's like there's a stated limit of speed, and he's going over it a little bit, isn't he?
Yes, and you have to. If you if you want to close the gap on the fast riders,
right?
Yeah, if you want to close the gap to the fast riders ahead of you, you have to ride faster than them. And they're already riding as fast as they feel comfortable with and on the limits of where their machines are taking them. And particularly on the technical sections, you can only really ride based on your skills. And these riders, they're all as good as each other when it comes to skills. It's whether somebody's a specialist in sand or not, which makes them have skills on this kind of course opposed to a course like Koppenberg or Gavre.
Yeah, we've seen some interesting bits here. Those riders both going through that section, like you were saying, was getting a little glazed out. These barricades, Helen, you've raced through this. You've been on the podium at this race. These planks are fast, and they're slightly, like a little bit downhill, if I recall.
Yes, they're on the downhill,
like
and so
the
they
slightest.
Is this on the downhill? So the bit that you're just seeing Runhaar go through there, they've had to put that in about 5 or 6 years ago because the riders were getting too much speed into the planks that some people crashed. They just weren't able to scrub. They did a good save there. They weren't able to scrub their speed as much as they should be able to, and so that was a good save by Ryan Camp there. And they've put this little chicane thing in before. Going to see what happens again. Still too much speed, I think, and he just had to take a foot out because he wasn't going to be able to make it over. And also there's a little bit of sand in the middle of that, which obviously flicks you around from time to time, which must be very disconcerting when you're trying to jump a plank at the same time as the bike's not where you think it should be.
We're coming back to this section that Iserbit had a problem with, but this time through cleanly. Run hard, doing everything that he can to just establish a gap. Now Iserbit's going to have to show he's got finally a run here at the front of the track. He's had to sit back and wait, but he's going to need to make some very concerted and focused efforts where he puts down power. The thing is I said yesterday for Iserbit, you would want to be doing those at the front of the race and attacking and putting them under pressure. Unfortunately, he's having to use that power and that focus to come back into the race, which is not the way that you win a fast track on a fast track like this.
On a fast track, a few seconds takes a really long time to close down. On a slow track, you could get 10 seconds in one power section. So it's really, this kind of course is really tough. I mean, having said that, they are coming closer. Sweek is really applying the pressure at this point, and Van der Haar is actually unable to stay onto that wheel when he was looking super strong the lap before.
Yeah, Runhart sliding into that, just letting that rear wheel just lock into there. Iserbit also doing the same. Everybody liking that downhill left-hand rut. That's what we were talking about in the women's race. This course is fun for the riders. Like, if this would be an awesome place to train if you could. It's hard. Like, it's constantly changing. It's these short little bursty, super low cadence sections. It's got a lot of like fast twitch muscle fibers where you have to like really just punch the bike up and get it up to speed. And then there's 2 power sections on this course, but it is a really fun course, isn't it?
It is a fun course, definitely. I think the most fun sand course is Oostmalle, and that's so much fun. And it doesn't matter if you're first or last; it's so much fun. Whereas this one seems, it was never on my favourites list. Maybe there wasn't enough power sections. Maybe I'm not really sure. It was just never on my favourites list. But it is a fun course. You are doing a lot of technical stuff. You are pushing the boundaries of your bike. You're sliding into corners, things like that. Things that make you smile and realise that I'm kind of this is a bit naughty at this point, but. That kind of thing. The thing that's is about cyclocross is sliding and that kind of thing. So. It is really good for that, but like you say, it would be a fantastic training location if they let you in the winter, which I don't know if they do. It's actually it's all fenced off, and they let you in the summer to use the lake, but you have to pay, so I don't know if they would let you in, but yeah, if you could, it would be a fantastic location to do a lot of technical cross-training.
So, Soik, Van der Haar, Runhart coming across, Iserbit drilling it with Dan Suta also on the rear tire there of Joris Neuvenhuis. So those 2 riders really doing a good job. We've got Felipe Orts, the Spanish champion, Michael Van Tornout, the European champion, Niels van de Putte, Kevin Kuhn, Vincent Bostons. We've got Tone coming across here, Tone van den Bosch, followed by Ryan Camp and Jens Adams. So very good here, really stuck together on this super fast course. And yeah, we're back to the front. Van der Haar taking over now from Soik, and he's got a good gap still. It's going to be up to Iserbit now with a clear track here to come across to Runhart and then try to find some opportunities here. You can see how he's out of the saddle, Helen, throwing that bike left and right. He's got a lot of work to do to come back to the front of this race.
He has. He is only 12 seconds down, though, and to lose 12 seconds to Van der Haar on a course like this, halfway, even if that makes 15 or 20 seconds, that still doesn't really eat enough of his time advantage over Van der Haar for Van der Haar to take the win in the final round in Brussels. But anything can happen at this point. And yeah, we wouldn't want anyone to make a mistake, but one mistake you can lose a lot of time, and it's, as we've seen, it's so hard to bring time back. Unfortunately, with Runhart in 3rd right now, he's a carrot between Iserbit and the front group. So he either needs to think of his own race or think of his teammate and actually wait for the group to catch and then attack again.
Yeah, I do think he's got a good opportunity, though. I mean, it's not insignificant, the difference between 2nd and 3rd, and that overall it's got to be somewhere around 10,000 euros or so, maybe 8,000 euros. So I think Runhart's thinking about the potential battle that could come down here with Michael Van Tornout for that overall. So he's kind of got, there's like some races that are happening inside the race, but that's, I feel like, what's really motivating Runhart to do this ride here and to put Michael Van Tornout under pressure.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Michael Van Tornout is still there. We know he's quite good at riding sand like that. He's riding a lot better than anyone else. He's taken a lot less running, which over time is easier on your body. Switching between the riding and the running sections of racing actually really wears you down. So we shall have to see. We shall have to see.
We shall. Laurent Sweck, by my account, the only rider that's been able to take the victory here. So Iserbyt and Van der Haar, I don't see their names as being winners of this race. I see Toon Aerts, I see Soek, I see Van Aert, Van der Poel, Sven Nys, Niels Albert, Tom Neusen, Kevin Powell, Sven Nys, but I don't see anybody else. So potentially, looking at a new winner, you see there on the left-hand side, one of the team personnel from the Balawasto Trek telling him to think about what's happening, because Iserbyt is making his way across now.
Yeah, I think Iserbyt might have won as an under 23 potentially.
Sorry, yeah. Speaking about elites.
Junior?
Speaking about elites.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I say, they're all Sweek and Iserbyt are slightly better in sand than Van der Haar, but Van der Haar's making no mistakes right now. He's pushing at the front. We haven't seen him had to put a foot down, fall out, crash. We've seen Iserbyt crash. He couldn't get his foot out, but we still saw him crash. And so they're taking a lot of risks, all these riders. And but sand skill is important in a race like this. Being naturally good at something, you can actually see there's braking bumps coming into that rut now, as well as just the rut. But he's closing the gap every time. It actually does look like a bigger gap here when we're looking on the edge of the lake.
We saw a great sprint finish last year between Niels van de Putte and Lars van der Haar. I remember it was intense, and Van de Putte not in this one, but Van der Haar definitely, I think, likes his chances in a sprint here. He's it's a fast race, it's a good sprint, and we know Van der Haar is a good sprinter. Against Soek, though, it's that's one of the best in the biz with regards to sprint. So this will be hotly contested if it comes down to a sprint finish.
They're both different sprinters, though, aren't they? Van der Haar is much more of an attacky sprinter.
I agree.
And Sweek is much more of a wind-it-up power style sprinter.
Yep.
So you have to play two different tactics. So Van der Haar would want to come in on Sweek's wheel. Sweek would not want him to come on his wheel. So you either have to power away in the sand section, the hairpin section in the woods that is stand as well, and try and create a small gap and hold that gap, or you have to, if you're Van der Haar, you might want to go in first so that you can then get on Sweek's wheel for the sprint.
Yeah, brilliant insight. I couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly what I was thinking. So it's this gap, you're right, though. It is big, and I think that Iserbyt's in trouble here. I have to be honest. I think that this is maybe one comeback too many for him after the start, and now to be able to come back like this is tough.
Yeah, I think it's really tough when you make that many efforts, especially in a course that requires so many attack-style efforts the whole time. You're always jumping out the corners. Every time you slow down for a sand rut, you have to accelerate. Like you can see here, out the corner, out the saddle, sprinting for a few seconds, sits back down again. And when you have to do that 20 times on a lap, that really wears you down over the course of 8 laps.
If you're just joining us, this is the 7th round of the X²O Badkamers Trofee. We've got a great race here at the front between Lars van der Haar and Laurent Sweck. Eli Iserbyt finally coming past Pim Runhaar, getting in a little bit of trouble there. Iserbyt and Van der Haar in the hunt for this overall right now. Van der Haar is about 2 minutes back off of Iserbyt for this overall, but Iserbyt putting up a big fight, but has had trouble, had a big fall through the middle of the race, and unfortunately hasn't been able to come back from that. But you see Iserbyt there again, Helen, doing that kind of little, these tricky little moves where he comes underneath one of the Trek riders to not let them slow things up in the twisties and making it harder for him to regain this front group.
He did, but unfortunately then he got his bike attached to Runhaar's, to the back of his bike attached to the front of Pim Runhaar's bike, and so Runhaar had to do a move forward so that they unclipped as Iserbyt wasn't slowing down. He was just dragging the guy's bike with him. So yeah, that was a tight one. There probably wasn't enough space for that one, or at least Runhaar wasn't expecting it, so there wasn't anywhere for him to get out of the way, and their bikes got attached to each other, and they had to detach themselves before he was able to go on. That would annoy Runhaar.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think racing a lot of criteriums here in the U.S. and a lot of cross races, it's not looked these riders all know each other. They race week in and week out. It won't be appreciated. I don't think. I don't think it's like drama, but I don't think that it's not great sportsmanship to be dive bombing under someone on the inside of a turn. I understand the what Easterbit's point in all this is, but usually it's on a section like this, Helen, where you come to the front. You wait in that section, then you come to the front. I know why he's doing it because of the team tactics that are playing out here, but he's done it twice now, and I guess it is kind of different. Like, okay, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that, but it is it's not that well respected, is it?
I don't think that move was for sure. The first move on the sand corner was actually quite a fair move.
Yeah.
He was going quite slow. There was space to get through. I don't think that last corner was particularly a safe point in order to do that, and nobody would have anticipated that. Everybody expects somebody to jump off their bike in the other sand section. So, but annoying him will probably just rile him up a bit and make him give a bit of an adrenaline kick, and it will probably make him fight harder for that third podium spot right now. So, I mean, nobody's hurting each other. Nobody's really touching each other. They're getting a bit too close, but it's still racing.
And just as I say that, Runhar is going to come back across the front of Easterbit. So just like you said, it did annoy him. And you see now he wants the front of this race. Easterbit wasn't expecting that, and he's not able to do anything because he really set himself up there, Helen, to have to be on the front and drive that whole windy kind of front section. It's not a lot of wind today, only 3, 4, 5 miles an hour is what I saw in the weather when I looked this morning. But still, driving on the front like that, Runhar really fought his way back there to get into the front for this technical section. And now you see he's taking it quite gingerly, isn't he?
Yeah, and I mean, there's ways to explain that in words we're not allowed to use on TV, but that is what they're saying to each other basically. And it's fair. It's fair racing. I don't really quite understand why Isabet wanted to go ahead in that particular section, because where he did make that slightly crazy move, because then you're going onto the road and then you have to sit on the front of a group of 5 riders on the road. So you're actually helping them by doing it that way, and they would have let you go to the front if you'd just waited a minute. But I think he sometimes sees what he wants to get and wants to go and get it, and if he felt at that moment that they were going to slow him down, he had to go to the front in that exact moment, because the technical aspects of the course are to his advantage.
Yeah, well, Soek with a couple of seconds now, or a couple of bike lengths, I should say, over Lars van der Haar as they come through right now. These little bridges. Soek has got a good here as they go through that really rutted out section now. Easterbit kind of takes up the chase, but Laurens Soek putting a little bit of pressure now onto van der Haar.
Yeah, I think Isabet, to me, looks the stronger rider at this point in the race. He looked stronger on the second lap, but van der Haar was still there. And van der Haar's so good at holding the wheel. If he can hold the wheel, he can recover really, really well, which is an art in itself. But, yeah, I think it's going to be tough for Isabet to come back when Sweek's using his power on the one section of the course where you have power. That's where they gap, and then they slowly, gradually bring that gap down, and then they take it away again the next lap. So I think for Sweek, I think for Isabet, it's going to be tough for him to get across to these front two.
Let's see how this goes now. This is a big section because there's going to be a lot of power output, and if Easterbit has any more matches to burn, he could potentially make up some time here. Let's see what his demeanor on the bike is. You see that, Sweek and van der Haar kind of tempoing along, riding like a hard threshold pace here. But let's see if Easterbit is out of the saddle, Helen, or if he's just he's also having to tempo along after all this energy that he's been putting out, battling in the back with the other Trek riders.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how much these two riders at the front are slowing down for this corner, so it's obviously starting to get a little bit loose. It's probably just the top surface is loose. They do have a slightly more aggressive demeanour than that second group right now. The second group seem to be more upright, not quite so tucked. Doesn't mean they're not riding super fast. It could just, and with Lars van der Haar not able to jump these planks, that's one advantage to Isabet, but they've just got to get back to him, and I really don't see how they're going to get back to that. Even though it's a small time gap, it's such a fast course. It's so hard to close that many seconds.
Niels van de Putte, second here last year. Big ride for him, and I'm excited that he's in the hunt for the third spot on the podium. I think in a sprint finish, man, he's you could bet on any of those riders, but based on his result last year, very much clearly a good track for the Alpecin de Koenig rider.
Yes, when you're a sand rider, you're a sand rider. And for some reason, you just have those skills. And yeah, you can train them, and other non-sand riders can train to be good in the sand. But if you just aren't naturally good at it, it's really tough.
Great shot of Soik now coming across. We've got Van der Haar there really focused as they come through up and over that metal bridge as they come through now. Iserbyt, you see leaning how close he was to that blow up little thing that's making sure that the riders don't hit their elbows or their shoulders, any of that. Now watch this section under pressure. This is where we've seen a lot of mistakes come out. There's a very defined speed limit on this part of the course. You see everybody through that rut. Now you're watching Iserbyt drop down, using his entire body weight, using his head to really lean his body weight over as he comes up to the top. He's going to drop back down. Everybody through this section clean. We've got a lapped rider just getting out of the way as he watches these riders come in. Everyone taking that outside line and then going through. So everybody in the front group, Helen, able to ace this section this time, with Felipe Orts just hanging on to that second chase group that's formed now.
Yeah, these front two riders have eased off the pace slightly, which is going to help Iserbyt. Maybe Soik realises he's not getting rid of Van der Haar that easily, and so he needs to recover in order to save something for the sprint. Or it could just be that these riders in this second section of the course are actually slightly better. Whereas that big power section that Soik's good at is in the first half of the course. Equally, if you're consistently applying the same effort the whole time, it's easier to have a solid average speed. If you're attacking each other, it's much harder to see what pace you're doing. And so it could just be that Iserbyt's decided, well, that was a silly move. I shouldn't have done that last lap. Now I'm just going to get on the front and ride as hard as I can. And no one's going to help me, so I have to bring this back on my own.
Yeah. I love the new generation here on the Iserbyt's wheel. Ronhaar, as well as Van de Putte. I'd love to see one of them on the podium, I have to be honest. All these other riders are the riders who they're trying to get to that same level of, and it's a great thing to see. It's what bike racing is all about. So now Iserbyt finds himself having to ride the front again, and we're going to see the gap as they come through. So I was just doing the lap times again, and it is almost the exact same as the prior two laps. So they're running very consistent lap times out here, the last two halves of the race. But there's still quite a bit of racing left to go here. Only 30 minutes in. Iserbyt realizes there's time left, but the gap, 16 seconds now. We've got Van Torenhout there, Joris Neuvenhuis at 19 seconds, Felipe Orts at 22. This will be Dan Suter coming across just behind.
Yeah, no, we're only 12 seconds down the lap before, I think. So they have actually taken, the front two have actually taken 4 seconds out of that chase group, even though they look like they're not trying as hard. So maybe they're actually very controlled at this point, and maybe they're just biding their time. And 3 laps isn't a long time to make a difference, but I wouldn't expect them to be attacking each other until the next lap, I'd imagine.
Agree. I think right now, Ronhaar, this is the section he's going to come back to the front. Iserbyt has to give it up. Michael Van Torenhout's done a great job to recover after he was just hanging out, just kind of getting into this race for the first half an hour. He's really been called out here by Ronhaar, and I think he realizes that this third overall is not locked, and so he's got to do everything he can to stay on the podium of this X²O Badkamers Trofee. So you're seeing the European champ really dig super deep, and now Iserbyt again going up the inside. So that's the third time this race that he just does not want to let Ronhaar, and it's aggressive racing in the back. Like you said, I don't think it's in bad form. I just think it's the reality of this course and how tight and narrow it is, and the opportunistic rider like Ronhaar can't slow things down, and that's really having Iserbyt have to use a lot of energy.
It is, but I think that was a very fair move. There was completely a different line. There was no way that he was getting anywhere near him. So, yeah, I think that's a very fair move. In the past, Michael Van Torenhout has had a history of enjoying after the World Championships. And so sometimes you'll find that you need a few laps to warm back into the race if you haven't done as much training as you should have done in the week between Worlds and now.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, everyone needs to just let the pressure release valve go a little bit. Like, you just got to take some time. So that's great to hear. Swag on the front now. Lars van der Haar just behind him. The fans, you can see Sven Nys there on the back. He wants to see Van der Haar do something here. He wants to see him take a victory, put his hands in the air. This is as good an opportunity as he's had. He's got a great shot at this. He's really, I feel like they're very evenly matched, Swake and Lars van der Haar. And now you see back in this chase group, Niels van der Putte losing a couple of bike lengths here as Easterbit seems to be ratcheting up the pace a bit.
Yeah, Iserbit really wants to get this across now, and he did. That was a smooth move to go up those steps first, and he's just trying to apply that pressure that he's already applied once. And Michael Van Tornout is coming back. He's not getting dropped at this point, so he really has warmed up significantly. And with only 2.5 laps to go, I think he could still be in contention for that third spot. And even if they're just fighting to limit the loss to Lars van der Haar overall, they're also fighting for the third spot on that podium, and that's more exposure for your sponsors, your team, more prize money, all those things, and another podium, which means something in Belgian racing. But for the young riders, this is a fantastic opportunity this time of year to actually race and stay in Belgium. And I know a lot of Americans would actually come over for Worlds and things, which is really important. But for learning opportunities, I would say that there's nothing better than the last 3 weeks of racing in Belgium. And not only learning opportunities, but opportunities to score UCI points, to improve your gridding that will last an entire season, because it's a rolling thing. It doesn't come off till this time next year. I really believe these races are so important for anyone that wants to learn their trade in cyclocross.
Yeah, I think so too. These are when you could get through, if you could mentally, and you had just enough form left. Gosh, it was such good time spent to come over to these races as everybody threw those barriers clean. Yeah, and it's a great opportunity to pick up some points that, you're right, last throughout the year. So everybody at different points in their season. We see one of the most gifted technical riders out there, Felipe Orts, just styling it up as he goes over those planks. Whew, we've got a race on our hands here. We've got just a couple laps left. And here at the front, we've got Laurent Sweck dropping into this sand. This is the point in the race where I think for the younger riders it's harder, but I think for the more experienced riders, they know that this is an attrition point, right? Now, after 40-plus minutes of racing, this is when the mistakes might come out. You got to ratchet the speed up and then just see who's going to make a mistake. And for the younger riders, it's about hanging on and not making a mistake.
Absolutely, and I think watching Van der Haar's technique here, Iserbit pulled a foot out just as he went over those. He's struggling with his pedals today. Van der Haar's technique here is to very slightly back off on some of the corners. So when he goes around the corner, he backs off earlier, so he's actually carrying more speed than Sweet. And they come back together as they exit the corner. And in cyclocross, your exit speed is one of the most important factors. And maybe that's how he's able to hold the wheel so well on the sand course, where it's really tricky to stay close and follow a rut in places like this. But he is very slightly backing off and then using the extra momentum that he's carrying around that corner to jump back on before they exit, which is really interesting technique. It's really impressive.
Yeah, the gap seems to be still stuck, if not out even a little bit. So I think Easterbit, even though he's driving the pace in the front, not taking back a ton of time. Definitely, Soek is really keeping the pace consistent at the front here. He's on a course that he's he likes. He's won on here in 2020 or 2021 actually. It was the February, so it would have been 2021. But he's got a course that he likes. He's clearly on a good day. They'll look back and they'll be pushed on. I always talk, Ellen, in these types of races, when you're looking at these 180s, it's a great place to mark where somebody else is, and I think that they'll be pushed on by that. But right now, Easterbit's still getting out of the saddle and trying to punch it right up.
There are loads of places on this course where you can actually see the riders coming against you because it's lapped around a lake. It's kind of like a horseshoe course. When we saw at the start of this race, we saw what the course looked like, and So there are plenty of opportunities where you come back past each other, and you always pay attention. That's roughly where I saw them last time, and there are a lot of course markers to give you the opportunity to do that. So this race particularly, you can really note where those riders are around you. And Van der Haar straight round to the front ahead of Sweek, and you see how low Sweek has to tuck in order to get any wind protection from Van der Haar like there.
TT set up there as they come through. So that lap, 7:25 is what I've got here on my timer. So that's a little bit faster than the average that they've had for the last 30 minutes, because they were averaging about 15 before. So right in there, though, within that 5 seconds. And we see this gap now, 14 seconds. So they've lost 2 seconds, or Easterbit's gained back 2 seconds, but that's still not enough. And like we were saying, Helen, 5 seconds a lap with only 2 laps to go. It's going to be hard unless there's a mistake. But now these 2 riders at the front are definitely going to be dueling, as now Van der Haar out of the saddle. We've seen this for so many years. The way that he rides, he's definitely very focused right now. He's got the little bit of the bob in his back, and he really wants to lead into this sand section and see, can I, with 15 minutes left to go here, put Laurent Sweeck under pressure?
I think he feels Sweeck is a threat at this point. I think he's been sat on his wheel. He knows how strong he's riding. And sometimes the best way to counteract a threat is to show that you're stronger. And even if you're not stronger, if you show you're stronger, it can make them question themselves. Sweeck hasn't been able to get Van der Haar off his wheel, so it's not like he's that much stronger than Van der Haar. But if Van der Haar shows, right, I'm the aggressor here, I can do this, then maybe Sweeck will think, okay, I'll wait for a sprint because maybe I'll have a better opportunity then.
It's going to be interesting to see how it comes down. Helen, do you think if you're Lars Van der Haar, wow, Easterbit, a lot of body language on that to get through that rut there. If you're Van der Haar, do you want to try to lose Sweeck now, or do you I'll say it Britishly, fancy your chance in a sprint?
Is that British? Yes, I would. If I was Van der Haar, I would try both. I would try to get rid of him because, you know, if you can, that's brilliant. That shows that he's not as strong as you think he is. And if also with Van der Haar's acceleration and ability in a sprint, I wouldn't be unconfident in that situation either. So if I can't get rid of him, then on the last lap, yeah, I would let him take the lead, and I would then try and outsprint him, come around on that final. It's a long straight. It must be about 150 meters or so, which is enough time to come around on the sprint. But equally, if you can drop him before then, that makes for a much more enjoyable finish.
I'm just trying to find out in my mind. Normally on a course, you see someone's like really good on a section and they can make up the difference. But in this one, these two guys are so evenly matched. And I love this part, these big ruts with all the tree roots going through them there as they go down, and the fans yelling. I have such great memories of like the fast courses with the defined rut, but on the dry track. But look at now as they go through. This is Van der Haar at his best. He's really trying to put Laurence under pressure, and he's doing a good job at it. You can see both the riders are fatiguing right now, and Easterbit's having to match it and drive this entirely by himself from the back. But right now, like I said before, it's just going to be hard. But really, I think that Van der Haar is super locked in, but I don't know. He's got stiff competition today from Sweeck as they go through this section here. He's going to hear Laurent Sweeck continuously back there.
I feel Sweeck has slightly more power at this point, and I think he needs to lay it down this lap and the next lap on this section they're coming. Oh, Van der Haar's got a gap. Sweeck must have made a mistake.
It must have been a mistake. Maybe we'll get a replay, but the live timing is right there on the limit. But this is important. I don't know that this is the game changer yet, but there is definitely time now between Van der Haar and Sweeck. And now with this long shot, you can see it. It's not that much time, maybe 2 seconds, but this is the kind of gap that we talked about. It's hard to get back 2 seconds on this course. Van der Haar now is going to hear that Sweeck is off the back a little bit. He's going to come through this section. Sweeck has been able to ride the planks where Van der Haar's had to get off, so he may bring that back just in this section. But let's see, is Van der Haar able to capitalize on this small error and come back, or is this just a sign of things to come? Is Laurence in a bad moment in the final of this track?
Yeah, I didn't see an incident. We didn't see a replay of an incident. I mean, Sweeck is back on again.
Here we go.
Oh, here we go.
Let's see what we got here. It was all through this. That is that tricky section we saw in the women's race. That's exactly what happened to Alvarado in the women's race, if you recall, Ellen.
Yeah, the front wheel and the back wheel went together at the same time, and he got forced off the bike, but he was able to stay upright, still feet clipped in, impressive skills, and
Yes.
now he's back on. But that has taken away one of his opportunities to lay down the power on that long straight before we get to the planks.
Yeah, I do think this is a good sprint for Swick, and we just have to see now if that's one error and that's it. It's one and done, or if there's going to be more and he's really actually under pressure, because it's weird in these technical tracks like this where you've got to really have a lot of memorization. You've got to hit each of these sections one lap after the next, set up here, set up there, get in this gear, do that. It's a lot of memorization, and at the end of the race when the attrition rate comes up, it's just like you just start to make the errors, they add up. Is that just one and done, or is this going to be more of a thing that Swick's going to have to battle as he's really being put under pressure now by Van der Haar?
But they're also tactical races, and your brain really hurts already from the remembering what you're going to have to do at each section, and then to put the tactical aspect in as well. It's really tough, and your brain should hurt more as much as your legs by the finish in races like this. It's hard to make smart choices when your heart rate's at 200.
Yes, I agree. Ron Haar doing the ride here of the day for me. I'm super happy to see it. It's great. I'd be curious to see what happens in the back here. I think Michael Van Torenhout and Easterbit obviously have the team card to play, but I wonder if they'll play it against Pim Ron Haar, and we will see though as they come into this. If there's no mistakes here from Ron Haar and they have a clean shot at the sprint, what do you think for that?
For this podium, for the final spot on the podium, I think it's going to be such an interesting battle. And I mean, who's the fastest sprinter of those three? We never really see them come up against each other.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I agree. I don't know that we've seen a head-to-head battle with those three, so it is going to be something new for us, and it can be exciting. I know all of them can win a sprint. I have to say Easterbit and Ron Haar would be my two kind of like potentially. I don't know. We'll have to see. Michael Van Torenhout can also sprint, so we'll see.
And Easterbit has been leading this whole group for the last 3 laps, so he's going to be more tired, but he's all about the time. So all he would care about at this point is that he limits his losses to Van der Haar. As if they stay away, he needs to limit his losses. But equally, they're less than they were. 14 seconds last lap. He's really not losing anything to Van der Haar at this point. Van der Haar would struggle to get 2 minutes plus back in the final in just one round of racing. So, he needs to keep the pace high, but he could probably recover a little bit and then still go for the sprint to get that podium spot, because the podium is great to be on in any bike race.
Van der Haar looking for a little bit of help from Laurens Soek, but not getting it as they come through here. So we've got the bell lap, the final lap of the day. They come through by my calculations, again, 7:24. So this gap looking to stay consistent. I think that these two riders now are going to be fighting for the win. This is going to be the duel. This is going to be the final now between these three for the last podium spot. We're going to see a lot of action in this next 7.5 minutes, Helen.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. Hopefully they stay together all the way to the finish and we can watch some sprint racing in cross.
Right now, Van der Haar wanting to lead into this section. Swick super focused. Gosh, I've seen that shot of him going around a turn. He really pushes the bike away and leans in like a motocrosser when he's doing that type of turn. At that position, he's just got locked. It's just his body style and the way that he positions himself on the bike. He's looking to take over the front for the sand. Probably a good move for him to lead through that section. And Van der Haar's going to have to look for an opportunity here, and it's not sure where it's going to come, but if he wants to get rid of Laurens Swick, I think that he also really is probably happy to take him to a sprint. But it's just going to be up to Swick to see now. Is he going to try to do something and burn some matches here before the sprint, or is he just going to try to stay out of trouble and ride this at a good tempo all through here?
I think Swick has to attack Van der Haar on one of the sections that suits him, so probably the power section by the lake, or potentially the last woods section. He's actually taking really nice lines in there, and he seems to be maintaining his speed really well in there. But he would still need a gap coming out of that in order to stop Van der Haar having a sprint, an acceleration to drop him. So yeah, I think he has 2 opportunities still, and I don't think on any of the other sections, I think they're so evenly matched it would be hard for one or the other to get rid of the other one.
Is a bit
just tightening shoe up there.
There's going to be a little bit of butterflies for these two in the front. I think they both would love to take a victory here. It's weird. You know, the wins really do mean something to everybody. It's a victory in a cross like this, televised cross, part of the X²O Trophy. It's, you know, these are serious races. If you're a cyclocrosser, this is as good as it gets. So they're both going to have a little bit of, you know, anxiousness. They're going to have some butterflies. They want to do this. They're going to be hearing the fans, and they both know they've gotten to this point. It's like, can we just finish it off? And I remember being in that position so many times, as I'm sure you do, Helen, where you're just like, mentally, you're so locked in right now. It's kind of a beautiful moment where you're just like, the fans are yelling, you're like floating on top of the pedals, just hitting everything like it's second nature. But that intensity of trying to take the win and the little butterflies that are there, I remember it so well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried to get rid of people pretty early on in races. I wasn't one that was into sprinting. Every time I went to a sprint with Sanakant, she beat me, so I would try not to be there. But yeah, I mean, on those tactical races where you do happen to be there, then it's really exciting going into the finish. And interestingly, Sweeks had 6 wins this year compared to Van der Haar's 3. So would Sweek be more confident in this situation? He does have an incredibly powerful sprint. It's just whether, and I just feel that he's very slightly stronger at this point. So I'm going to put my money on him, even though Van der Haar's probably my favourite.
Yes.
Rider.
Yeah, we are going to see. I mean, yeah, we'll see now. This is the section, though, that Laurens Sweeck would do everything that he could to be able to try to open up a gap here on Lars Van der Haar, and exactly like that, he is opening up 2-3 bike lengths, and if he's able to hop the planks and Van der Haar's not able to match Van der Haar out of the saddle, really, this is what the end of a 20-minute power test looks like if you're Lars Van der Haar. He's just doing everything in his power to be able to just match the big power output of the big legs of Laurens Sweeck. He comes right back to him on this technical section. Let's see the body language. A little over-geared there for Van der Haar. He's definitely at the maximum point in his capacity as he comes through. He's got to get off the bike quick, be in the right gear. Sweeck over the barricades quick. Now Van der Haar, quick legs, quick feet, right back into the pedals. He's got about 2-3 bike lengths. Van der Haar's got a little bit of work to do, but there's enough course left for him to come back still.
I think this is where Sweek has to win the race from. He has to put everything in for this next half a lap and just sprint out every corner and maintain that, because then Van der Haar really, we've seen in other races today how tricky it is to close a small gap. So I really think that Sweek just has to keep the power down, and Van der Haar won't be able to come back to him.
Yeah, I agree. He's got a good gap now. This is definitely a significant gap. Can he ace these next technical sections? That's what it's going to come down to. He's brought the pace up. He's laid down a serious attack. He's through this section. He's got probably 5, 6, 7 more sections that he has to ace, but he could be looking at a nice gap over Lars Van der Haar coming into the finish. Van der Haar's done good work to be able to pad some time away from Iserbit and the overall, but I do think that maybe wasn't the only goal today. I think that Van der Haar would really like to have had a shot at the victory.
I think Van der Haar was all for the win today. I mean, the overall, unless you're really, really close, the overall is going to stay where it is. So for him, it was all about winning this bike race. And he did put in a good shot at it. It's not over yet,
nope.
But he has put in a good shot at it. I just feel Sweek was just that little bit stronger in the sections where it really counts.
This is another one of those sections that I was saying you've got to ace. Under pressure, he'll see the gap from Van der Haar. He comes in, hits that, able to come through. This is under pressure. Van der Haar aces that section. Now we've got to hit this outside rut. Everyone's been going wide. Then it's loose sand as they come in. Sweeck through cleanly. Van der Haar hits it exactly the same way. He's also through clean. So now they're up to the top. Only a couple more sections that they've got to just nail. But can Van der Haar do anything, or will Sweeck make a mistake here in these next 180 sections and these next little technical bits?
Laurens Sweeck has showed that he is more confident in this next section. Once we've done these 2 hairpins, he has pushed the limits of his bike the most of these 2 riders on this next section. That's actually where he attacked Van der Haar on 1 lap. So his confidence is high going into this final 300-400 meters of the course.
All right, so a little bit of a gap now. Back to Van der Haar as now Laurens Sweeck really does this. Sweeck had an interesting year, getting into a couple kerfuffles with his old teammates, but he's been very, very good. He's had probably the best season that we've definitely seen recent times, but he's coming into this finish straight now, and he's going to be stoked about this, Helen.
He's going to love it. Everybody loves winning bike races, and he did it in such a smooth way, in such a way that you wouldn't really even notice. He just used his power.
So here it is, out of the saddle, the big man from Krelan Fristads, the World Cup winner earlier this year. The overall World Cup winner comes in laying down a big attack all along the lake. It's going to be victory here in LILLE for Laurent Sweeck. Lars van der Haar doing everything that he can, but it's going to be victory for Laurent Sweeck as he comes through. A big punch to the top of the sky, arms out. Sweeck takes the victory over van der Haar. Second year in a row, Lars van der Haar on the podium here in a row.
And it's really good to see after all that work that Isabeth put in that he's able to take that final podium spot. And he put the work in to limit his losses, and he also put the work in to try and get back to that group who just wasn't able to in the end.
Now a big sprint between Michael van Tornhout and Pim Runhaar as they come down. Runhaar, Michael van Tornhout not able to. Oh, he does. Gets Runhaar at the line. So great ride though from Pim Runhaar, the former under 23 world champ, able to come in here. Now we've got a big sprint here. Niels van de Putte, Felipe Orts really in the mix here. We've got all over the course as they go down. Everybody in the drops as they go. Can they get there? Who's it going to be all the way to the line? Oh! Looks like Van de Putte, Orts, and then Neuwenhuis all coming across as they go there. Ryan Camp rolling in for 9th spot. Man, the tradition of LILLE coming through here with some great sprint finishes as we see this one. Dan Sutte coming in to finish this one out as well. Woo.
Yeah, I mean, there's some Jens Adam taking that one from Team Van der Bosch, and Vincent Bastan's coming in to take in 13th. You know, it's so close together. We've only finished a minute and 16 and the top 12. It shows how fast the course is today.
Yeah, a scorcher, an absolute scorcher. This is a great ride from Bastans as well. You were talking about it earlier when we'd all race here in the U.S. early season. Like you're training and doing intervals in August to get ready for the September races that are so hotly contested over here. He was doing that, and he's still here, you know, riding in the 13th place in LILLE. This is a long year. Gosh, it's a long year. February to, September to the middle of February. These are long seasons for a proper crosser.
It is a long season, but it really is possible, because if you plan your season around different peaks, you can have 2 peaks, particularly when your season's that long, and you can use those races in America. You don't have to hit them we as non-Americans don't have to hit them as at the very best of our form, because we're able to choose peaks in Europe. And even, I mean, I rode for Kona, which is an American brand, but they were happy with me getting results in Europe. That's what they wanted too. That's why they supported me. So, we don't have to win those races. Americans, I would suggest, probably it's more important to them. But so we could use those races to train to get the race fitness up, something that you cannot train yourself. You can only get from racing. So when we came into the European cross season, we were actually able to be faster naturally because we'd already been racing. And then you take a break, and then you take a racing break, not a training break, and then you're able to race strong by the end of the season too.
This was it. Great insight. Thanks. Yeah, thank you for that, Helen. Yeah, we got here Laurent Sweeck taking the W over Lars van der Haar.
Laurent Sweeck, je gaat dat nog moeten doen. Zeuren over de bochten in het zand. Want dat deed je vooraf. Dat het allemaal te snel lag en dat je weinig kon met dat zand. En kijk eens, je wint.
Ja, ik denk dat ik de ideale gezel had van voor. Dat we het klassement moesten rijden. En ik denk dat we ook goed samenwerkten. Het was zeker niet gemakkelijk eigenlijk van in de eerste seconde mee in de aanval. En dan is het een lange cross. Maar ik ben blij dat ik het kan afmaken. Zo.
Waar heb je het verschil gemaakt op die balletjes? En wist je van ik ga het daar moeten doen, erover springen en dan versnellen?
Ja, Lars sprong niet. En het was de ene seconde dat je daar kon pakken. En ik wist wel dat je gewoon daar op kop te zitten en druk te zetten, dat enorm moeilijk was. Het wiel te houden, dat had ik al zelf ook al ondervonden. Dus ja, gewoon zo rap mogelijk naar de finish gereden.
Spreken jullie dan met elkaar van we gaan hier gewoon even samenwerken? Want Iserbiet en Co, dat was de hele tijd 12, 13, 14, 15 seconden, zoiets.
We hebben eigenlijk niet gesproken, maar we verstonden elkaar wel. En ik denk dat we ieder om beurt probeerden van een Tour op kop te rijden. En dat lukte eigenlijk heel goed. Ja.
Wat doet dit en waar plaats je dit?
Ja, naast die andere overwinningen van dit seizoen. Het is gewoon een bevestiging van een heel goed seizoen. En het is nog niet gedaan, dus ik hoop dat ik er nog een stukje kan aanbreiden op deze manier.
En misschien ook afrekenen met die akkefietjes die er dan geweest zijn.
Ja, die spelen niet meer mee eigenlijk. Daar heb ik niet aan gedacht.
Proficiat, dankjewel, Laurens.
So he said that they worked together really well in the race. He knew that Lars was after the classification, the end classification, so they worked together. He tried to get a small gap over Van der Haar in the section that we saw him attack on, knowing that he could get 1 second more over the planks because he was running. And he knew in this kind of race it's really difficult for the second wheel to come back if you're able to maintain a small gap. He did say that he knew that the second group were chasing them down pretty hard, but they weren't coming closer, and he's very happy with this season.
Yeah, he's had a year, hasn't he? Making the switch to this team. If you think about a rider that's like really taking care of themselves, Laurent Sweck has got to be a absolute like degree from university about how to like know a situation's not good for you, run the contract out, and then make the switch and just be diplomatic about it. He needed to switch teams, I think, for him to really come through this year.
Yeah, and I mean, as you can see, winning races. He led this race from the start. He got a brilliant start. Iserbyt didn't get such a great start. He had to fight back really hard. Van der Haar attacked. He was all about winning this race. That's what he wanted to do before. And Sweek was the only rider that was able to get close to Van der Haar and bring him back a little bit towards the end of the first lap.
Yeah, it's so much about environment, isn't it, Helen? Like the positive environment and just being in a place where you're comfortable and you can do work and show up every day and just try to do your best is something. I think negative energy as a bike rider, man, it's a weird thing. It's not, you really have to keep a positive environment around you.
Yeah, definitely. And when these two were off the front, they were attacking, were working together, but they were trying to attack. And then we saw Pim Ronho come really close, but Iserbyt was not giving up today, and Iserbyt was trying to defend his overall lead in the X²O Trophy series.
Yeah, this was one of those kind of things you see. You see there, this is one of 3 kind of like undercuts that we talked about in the race, and it was just bike racing. But I think that the Trek boys definitely had their way a little bit with Iserbyt, and I do think that they played their hand really well. I think Iserbyt made that mistake, which for sure in the post-race interview we're going to hear he's going to regret that. But it is part of bike racing. You just can't get out of your pedal. Silly little crash like that. Iserbyt had to pay the price, and it ended up that he just couldn't get back from these two. And Laurent Sweck, he shredded it.
But yeah, he laid down all the power on that last lap and made that small gap, and he knew in his head that I need a small gap, that's all I need. And Iserbyt was one of the strongest of the race. I mean, the way that he rode the front of that race, he never shared any work with anybody, and he still managed to get the group and actually get the 3rd spot on the podium. But he just didn't have a great start, which I think held him back significantly today.
Yeah, we saw it yesterday too. You know, those mistakes add up, and on a fast track like this, we both know it's so hard to come back to. It's like, where do you find 5, 7, 10 seconds on a different course? You know what I mean? Like something like Diegem or Zonhoven or something like that. You're able to find the time. There's plenty of watts to throw down. Here, there's a lot of speed limits on this course, in my opinion.
There really is so many speed limits, and like you say, you know. Your mental state is so important, and happy bike riders win bike races, and Sweek's put himself in a happy position this year.
Yeah. If you're with us on digital, you're going to be hanging on. We're going to be going down to the podium ceremony, so don't leave us just yet if you want to check out the podiums and these final interviews from Lars van der Haar as well.
Van der Haar, and yeah, he said if it had come back, it would have been a different story, but 2 minutes is a lot to have in an overall classification, but anything can happen in cyclocross, and he feels confident about the course in Brussels because you ride more alone.
Yeah, and he should, and I think he's